Ah, bellissimi e bellissime, welcome back for another episode at your favorite restaurant that serves all paranormal related dishes. Today, I have something for you that reeks of a delicate aroma seasoned with the most exotic spices coming directly from the US and blended perfectly with the flavors of my beloved peninsula, Italy. But in order to do that, we need to travel. Where, you ask? Well, in one of the most beloved cities of tourists around the world. I'm talking about Venice, the most romantic city in the world, some would say. Home of great historical figures such as Marco Polo, the sculptor Antonio Canova, or painters such as Canaletto, then to go straight into more eccentric ones such as the adventurer, poet, alchemist, and philosopher Giacomo Casanova, also famous for being quite the ladies' man. Yeah. This is just to name a few, and the list is very long. In Venice you can find also beautiful buildings, wonders of architecture such as La Basilica di San Marco, Palazzo del Doge, and Piazza San Marco. I mean, Venice is a city to experience at the fullest, but beware of tourist traps. Restaurants especially are not cheap, but a good meal for a modest price can be consumed at any cicchettino. These are usually very small places and the quality of food is not bad at all. I remember when I was there in 2022 with some very special fantastic friends, we could enjoy a good meal for 13 euros circa. As always, I'm digressing, apologies for that. Going back to what I was saying, we are here for a particular dish and this one can be only found in my restaurant. The main part of it comes from an island in the vicinity of Venice, an island called Poveglia. Only there you can find and fish the elusive baccalà, the main ingredient for my version of a Venetian recipe, baccalà mantecato, but alla povegliana with ghost huntings. Phenomenal! Before we continue, do me a huge favor and smash that like button with the intensity of a ZACHARY Baggans pretending to be possessed, and do not forget, lovely wonderful people, to also subscribe if you enjoy my content. And now, lunch is served. Poveglia. I know that you heard this name before. In fact, a quick research on Google will probably lead you to articles, blogs, and videos claiming that the island is indeed haunted. But is it though? Well, only one way to find out. But first, a brief historical rundown of this place. Story time! The island is first mentioned in the chronicles of 1421 when people from Paduan and Este fled there to escape the barbarian invasions. In the 9th century, the island's population began to grow, and in the following centuries, its importance grew steadily until it was governed by a dedicated podestà. In 1379, Venice came under attack from the Genoan fleet during the Genoan-Venetian Wars. The people of Poveglia were then moved to the Giudecca. The island remained uninhabited in the subsequent centuries, and in 1527 the Doge offered the island to the Camaldolese monks, who refused the offer. From 1645 on, the Venetian government built 5 octagonal forts to protect and control the entrances to the lagoon. The Poveglian octagon is one of the 4 that still survives to this day. In 1776, the island came under the jurisdiction of the Magistrato alla Sanità, Public Health Office, and became a checkpoint for all goods and people coming to and going from Venice by ship. Worth also mentioning that also Napoleon Bonaparte was briefly involved with the history of the place. In fact, he had the old church of San Vitale located in Loco destroyed, and after that he ordered the still standing bell tower to be converted into a lighthouse. The island was used as a quarantine station from 1793 until 1814, and According to the Express, Poveglia Island hosted 160,000 infected people who lived their final days on the island. In 1922, the existing buildings were converted into an asylum for the mentally ill, and, always according to the Express, local sources tell of a legend of a doctor who did a very unspeakable things and unalived many of his patients by throwing them off its bell tower. Then it became a nursing and care home before its permanent closure in 1968. During this period, various stories circulated, such as lobotomization and other bizarre and inhumane experiments conducted by the same doctor, not to mention that most of the patients, or some of the patients I would say, of the nursing home were driven mad by the presence of the ghost of the plague ones, at least according to the legends circulating online about Poveglia. After the nursing home was closed, Poveglia was abandoned once again, and it remained like this since then. In 2014, the Italian state auctioned a 99-year lease of Poveglia, which would remain state property, to raise revenue, hoping that the buyer would redevelop the hospital into a luxury hotel. The highest bid was from Italian businessman Luigi Brugnaro, 513,000 euros. He planned to invest 20 million euros in the restoration plan. Unfortunately, officially the lease did not proceed because his project was judged not to meet all the conditions. Other sources suggested that the deal was annulled because the bid was too low, but that's pure speculation. Then, in 2015, a private group, Poveglia per Tutti, was hoping to raise 20-30 millions for a new plan to include a public park, a marina, a restaurant, an hostel, and a study center. As of 2024, the island still sat vacant. Roughly, this is the story surrounding the island, but we are here for something else, something more spooky. So, what about the rumors of the haunting surrounding this evil place? After all, according to many sources, videos, content creators, articles, they all claim that the island is a terrible, terrible place, full of vengeful spirits. Let's try to recap what is the paranormal history of the place then. In 2001, this island made an international mainstream appearance on the TV show Scariest Place on Earth, where Linda Blair, you know, The Exorcist, made an appearance as a guest. Then, in 2009, it was the turn of Ghost Adventures, where the brave crew led by none other than Zachary Baggans, also known as Zag, spent an entire night on the island in search for the truth behind the evil reputation of this 18 acres piece of land. In the episode, bizarre occurrences happened all around, and when they were interviewed after the investigation was long closed, the crew stated that they risked to stop the filming of the whole thing due to danger posed by evil entities, probably. Oh my. But wait! There is more. On the 18th of July 2016, a group of 5 individuals from Colorado, armed with the best ghost hunting equipment available at the time, hired a taxi boat to reach the island, and then they waved goodbye to the sailor, but not before giving him instruction to come back the very next morning to pick them up. But something went totally wrong that night. According to the newspaper La Nuova Venezia Mestre, the ghost hunters started to scream for help, and fortunately for them, a sailboat, which was about to dock in the port in Malmocco's channel, heard their plea, and soon after, a launch of the firefighters arrived on the island and rescued them. A close call indeed. This event was also reported in the local news of Rete Veneta, where they briefly give a quick but substantial rundown on the misadventure occurred to these brave investigators. Okay, these are the facts that I was presented while researching this topic by consulting several sources, and I'm not gonna lie to you, this sounds really scary. And look at this courageous content creator deciding to investigate the island by themselves. Such bravery should be rewarded, right? With such an amazing quantity of evidence, I'm sure that all of these folks have found something substantial. But wait a moment, are these sources reliable? Are the stories surrounding Poveglia all true, as I asked before? Now, the upcoming part is meant to answer the question posed by the owners of the channel Ave Data. Apologies if I'm butchering your name, who, after they read my comment under their investigation of Poveglia Island, in which I informed them that some facts might be different to what they are led to believe, they politely requested me to back my claims, providing them with articles and sources in regards of my statement. Well, I tried to post my reply 3 times, but I noticed that each time my comment disappeared. For sure a technical issue caused by YouTube rather than you deleting the comment. A very strange coincidence indeed, but I honestly don't think it was a voluntary action from your side. You know, strange things happen. So, to answer to you, the sources in question are of course Alberto Tosofei, folklorist, writer, journalist, a man with an extreme passion about the history of Venice. I would personally consider him an expert in regards of the history of this city. In fact, he is an author of countless books, and most of them have been also translated to other languages, English included. He has also a website where he explains in details about his work and shares his love for his hometown with whoever is interested. The other source is from an article written in 2017 by Riccardo Bottazzo and published on the website of the Italian Comité for the Control of Pseudoscientific Claims, in short, the CICAP. Last but not least, for reference, an article published on Il Post. So, dear friends of Ave Data, this part is specially made for you. Get comfy, take a nice cup of tea and cue the music! Let's start by checking the main primary source, Alberto Tosofei, who in this short video, Venezia in un minuto, which can be found on his official page on Facebook, strolls around the island and, while showing us the place, explains the history of Poveglia, noting of course that everything is in ruin. He briefly tells us what went on with the island from his occupation to the fact that the Poveglians in the course of history were privileged by the Doge, underlining as well the constant abandoning and reoccupation of the island itself in the course of time. Okay, but what about the death? The plague? The lazzaretto? This must be true, right? To simply put, nope. In 1793, a small ship hoisting the Greek flag was put into quarantine due to the fact that 30 sailors on board suffered the very well-known symptoms of the plague. Out of these 30, only 12 died and were buried on the island. Later on, in 1799, a Spanish ship was put into quarantine for the same reason that we have discussed previously, and this time, 8 people met their demise due to the cursed illness. Now, isn't it interesting now, is it? Only 20 people died on the island according to Alberto. Well, it's a far cry from what the Express stated and what it is believed outside Italy. I would strongly suggest to these newspapers to check their sources a little bit better, cause in my book, 20 is not 160,000, if math serves me right. Alberto also tells us about the misconception regarding the images of the lazzaretto shown online. According to him, they are not referred to Poveglia, but to the close Lazzaretto Vecchio. He underlines that in Venice, a total of 3 lazzaretti can be found. Lazzaretto Vecchio, 1423, then Lazzaretto Novo, founded in 1468, and finally Lazzaretto Novissimo, also known as Poveglia, founded in 1793, with a total death count of 20 people. In remembrance of this fact, you can find a stone saying Ne fodias, do not dig, or, as Alberto points out, could mean do not disturb the death by the plague who rests here, and a date 1793. So, I can safely say that the first rumor is debunked. Yeah, but the psychiatric ward? The mad doctor? That must be real, right?
Ma che oh!
Nope and nope. In the main island of Poveglia, there is indeed a sign indicating a psychiatric ward as shown by Alberto himself in the video. But please do not forget that this place was turned, as said previously, in a nursing home, and said ward was necessary for the patients who suffered from senile dementia. I mean, kinda normal. Then in 1968 also this home was closed and the island yet again was abandoned. And no mad doctor, not a trace of him in any document or historical records of the city. Nothing. Nada. Nulla. Nix. And the stories regarding ghost adventures? Fake. Fictional. Invented. I mean, we are talking about Zag and his happy crew of fakers. They have been debunked so much that at this point they have zero credibility left. Come on guys, check YouTube for more information. Check also the Skeptical Inquirer. They dismissed the show as just mere entertainment. Let's see what the second source say about this whole thing. In the article from CICAP, Riccardo Bottazzo has also the chance to interview Alberto Tosofei, who was approached and asked by Zag and his lovely crew about the history of Poveglia, and this is the statement that Alberto made on the matter. Allow me to translate. During the filming of the episode, the Fox Channel crew came and interviewed me as an expert of legends in regards of Venice. They wanted me to tell them about the ghosts in Poveglia at all cost. I kept repeating them that I had no interest in ghosts but in Venetians' oral written traditions, and in the whole vast literature there is not a single trace of ghosts in Poveglia. And these are the same statements that also the other experts and scholars interviewed by them told them. This was not enough to convince them. They didn't care about the history, nor literature or oral and written traditions of Venice. They chose that island to film a documentary on the ghost of Venice, mixing everything up randomly. He then continues, but this part was already discussed by us previously. I explained to them that that island till the end of the 1700s was never used as a lazzaretto. The healthcare web of lazzaretti that surrounded Venice was composed by Lazzaretto Vecchio and Novo, active respectively from 1423 to 1468. Only in two occasions ships were put into quarantine. First time in 1793 when 12 sailors lost their lives, and the second in 1799 where 8 people lost their lives. We know their names and surnames. In regards of the mass graves of the plagued ones, you won't find them for sure. Pretty explanatory, I'd say. I mean, what would you expect from a guy such as Zag, who is capable of pull-off stunts like this?
Yeah, said you! Stop, dude.
The Mad Doctor? The lobotomies? Well, they're inventions too. Oh man, the story of the Americans fleeing the island? That actually happened. In fact, the article tells us about the boys from Colorado and underlines the fact that the news agencies and TV news treated the argument with irony and sarcasm because, well, it was stupid. Please consider that for the locals, for the most of them at least, the island is not haunted at all. Per l'amor di Dio, the Venetians uses the island on warm Sundays as a barbecue spot. You can imagine the surprise when they heard the story, not to mention the laughters. If only I knew where these Americans got the idea from that the island is haunted. No clue. Maybe our friend Zag had something to say about that. Oh, sorry, Zag, you're too busy pretending being possessed. My bad, I apologize. All an amazing work of fiction farted out from the minds of producers whose sole intent was to make a scary episode. Wake up, people. Now, Avedata, are the sources provided satisfactory to you? Oh, by the way, the links are in the description, so help yourself, and if you so wish, there are many articles in English language that talks about the real history of Poveglia. I would like to add that if these sources are not trustworthy for you, then let me ask you this question. Is it more reliable an expert of the history of Venice, who spent a huge chunk of his life researching said history of the city he loves, backed up by official documentation whose claims are also supported by a non-profit organization dedicated in the analysis of all sorts of pseudoscientific claims such as the checkup, or a person whose intent is only to make a show and pass it as a real thing? A person, as said, with zero credibility, I would add. I don't know, man, but I tend to lean towards the first option. Now, in regards of your video, Night at the World's Most Haunted Island, I, of course, watched it, and I hope you don't mind, but I allowed myself to borrow a very short footage from your investigation. In any case, the link is in the description, so if my viewers would do the courtesy to click said link and watch it first, I would appreciate it a lot, and please be respectful in the comments. So, Avedata, could you kindly explain to me this?
Tää on niinkö kyllä.
Voitko tyttö sanoa oman nimen?
Saamme jälleen vastauksia suomen kielellä.
I may be nitpicking here a little bit, I admit, but I already questioned and explained the non-logic behind the spirit boxes and the pareidolia effect in the last video. But do you honestly think that in an Italian island, Finnish language would give you a coherent response? I would rather try to speak in Italian, or as we could understand before, maybe with Greek and Spanish language, since the 20 people were from those countries. It is just a suggestion, of course, and in regards of the rest of the video, I would argue that no evidence were found, but who am I to say? I'm just a skeptic with apparently a very big mouth, no competence in debunking beside my observation skills and critical thinking, so no hard feelings. I would say that the case of Poveglia is now debunked, and once again apparently. My wonderful folks, there are for sure other allegedly haunted locations in my beloved peninsula, for those who believe in ghosts of course, and I will try to do my very best to discover said locations, but I will make sure to check, double check, triple check all the sources for you so that no deception is in place. We reached the conclusion of another amazing meal. I hope that the bacala was tasty enough for your exquisite palate, and do not forget to comment. I truly want to know your thoughts on this one. Thank you again, have a great digestion, and be always wonderful. Ciao!